Evening, everyone. A very warm welcome to today's webinar. Mortimer J. Adler once said, in the case of good books, the point is not to see how many of them you can get through, but rather how many can get through to you. If you're wondering what sets apart the exceptional leaders of the world, it is the deep desire for new knowledge, new perspectives, and ideas, which are conveniently packed together in the form of a book. That is nothing short of what bibliophiles like to call it portable magic. As part of NDIM leadership responsibility in education and knowledge enhancement, being India's first and the only business school declared as a mentor institute by the Government of India and the CII, we are here with eminent HR leaders to learn from their corporate experiences and the books that inspired them to reach the top. NDIM is a 28-year-old, nationally and internationally accredited MBA college, declared as the best industry-linked B School of India for 3 years in a row from 2017 to 2019 by the AICT, Ministry of HRD, and the CII. NDIM has also been declared as the B School with Best Placement Services and as the best B School in North India by the Associated Chambers of Commerce and Industry from 2017 to 2020. Let me now introduce the most sought-after panelists for today's webinar. Our first panelist is Ms. Anushri Singh. She is the country HR director of the Indian subcontinent for Akzo Nobel and has more than 15 years of HR experience. Her strengths are in business partnering, transformation management, strategic workforce planning, employee engagement, and talent development. Before joining Akzo Nobel, the Dutch multinational paints and performance coatings company, she also worked with top rating organizations such as Avery, Dennison, Aditya Birla Group, Aircel, and Xerox. Next, we have Manvi Sushil. She is the HR Director, Label and Graphic Materials, South Asia at Avery Dennison. She's an exceptional HR leader with proven success in effective business partnering, defining and enabling people agendas in line with business needs, and creating high performing diverse teams. She has displayed the agility to succeed in different business contexts, such as high organic growth, consolidation, acquisition, and integration of enterprises across industry sectors. Prior to joining Avery Dennison, Manvi was working with business giants like ASA Abloy, Bharti Infratel, and Schneider Electric. Our third panelist is Shweta Verma. She is the head of learning and development at Uflex Group. She has a vast experience of 16 years in the field of human resource management. Currently, she is a part of the revolutionary talent management team at Uflex, wherein she is responsible for conceptualizing and executing various learning interventions in accordance with the dynamics of 8 business units and their global diversity. In the past, she has worked with leading organizations like EXL and Tata Teleservices. Our next panelist is Radhika Gupta. She is the head HR at Becton Dickinson Technology Campus. She is a strong HR professional with over 14 years of experience in business partnering, talent development, large-scale organizational ramp-ups, and culture building. Her overall experience spans across some of the leading global ITES, financial services, and healthcare companies. Our final panelist is Mr. Hariharan Sitharaman, General Manager Corporate Affairs at HCL Infosystems. He is a business operations professional with proven account and channel management skills, having worked across various cultures and industries across India with leading global and Indian conglomerates. A walking LinkedIn, as called by many friends, Hariharan has worked with Tata Teleservices, Xerox, and Aisher in his prior roles. I would now like to introduce the session host, Dr. V.M. Bansal. Dr. Bansal is a formal civil servant and has been the youngest and the longest serving secretary, collector, commissioner, principal commissioner, and director of India's biggest statutory urban authority, DDA Government of India, for 28 years. He has headed several public sector undertakings and departments of the Government of India, Government of Punjab, and Government of Delhi, and has held a number of important leadership positions in major international events, starting with Asian Games in 1982 to Commonwealth Games in 2010. He has led 10 government delegations to more than 18 countries and was advisor to the Lieutenant Governor of Delhi at the time of Commonwealth Games. He is a special invitee to the Education and Skill Committee of FICCI and ASSOCHAM and is the chairman of the Education Committee of the PhD Chamber of Commerce and Industry. Keeping in view the best track record of placements and internships at NDIM, AICT has appointed our chairman as a member of the National Steering Committee of Internships of the AICT. NDIM is the only non-government college in the country on this internship committee of AICT. I now invite Dr. Bansal for his opening remarks. Your mic is muted.
Yeah, thank you so much. Yeah, so warm welcome all the panelists. The event curated by dear friend Hariharan. I'm sure we are going to have a lot of learning, and the subject itself says mantras to excel. So let us see what mantras all of us learn today, and not just learn today, but practice them tomorrow. So that's the main thing. We need to be practicing, as they say, just do it. Most of us have a problem that we learn a lot, but we do a very little. So that would make all the difference, I would like to say. And very large number of participants already joined, almost 400 of them. And they belong to, I must tell all the friends here, they belong to the industry in a big way. Very senior colleagues from the industry are there. And academia from across the country is there. Students in any case are there from all places. Recently we held a, talking online thing, we just held up online essay competition. I learned our people did last week. And would you believe the number of students across the world showed interest into that online essay event? 2,500. Okay, and we got 182 entries under 3 different subjects from almost every college and university of the country, and a couple of adjoining countries also. So people are getting used to and tuned to this thing. They're very keen to learn new things, and that is why at NDM we started immediately after the lockdown. We're having friends like you, experts like you, who give us mantras regularly, and I must say every time we learn some new mantras out of friends like you. And how many of you would connect with us? I'm extending a warm welcome to all the panelists here, and we will try to reach the participants at that time. We are hosting the 4th Smart India Hackathon of the Government of India on the 1st, 2nd and 3rd of the August. The Smart India Hackathon is the proudest HRD event, which the Prime Minister even mentioned at Howdy Modi 6 months back. This is the moment, where in which it's called a digital revolution by the Government of India. And students across the country sit together. Till last year we were doing at the campus. And I remember 48 hours non-sleep and non-stop event it was. All the participants and all the faculty were kept awake for 2 nights. That was a game. And they were working at solutions from various ministries and various health problems, technical problems. And we were the only college, 2 colleges in the country, MBA colleges. All other were engineering institutions across the country, and 2 MBA colleges, one in Mumbai and other is NDIM. So we have been picked up for the last 4 years to host the Smart India Hackathon. And every year the Prime Minister addresses our students and students of other participating institutions. This year only 39 institutions have been chosen, and we fortunately are one of them. And we would be extending, we are now working out that how many people can we invite online to witness and participate in the event. We would get back to you on to that. So it's been a great event, and today only another great news I thought I'll share with the panelists before we come to the real mantras of excellence. Daikin Air Conditioning has given us a very big order on training of their top professionals on artificial intelligence and data sciences. We have been known for that. We introduced this MBA specialization 4 years back, and we are considered extremely good at that. And today we bagged a very big order of training the top personnel of Daikin. So, these are a couple of things happening. Pepperdine event, of course, Mohit attended also. We had Pepperdine University is a 87-year-old University of USA. And every year for the last 3 years, we have been having a international symposium with them on research. This time, that too had to be conducted online. So, lot many things happening. Why I'm mentioning all these things is because these also open up a lot of learning windows in the minds of the participants. This is a time, I would say, to think of new things, to plan new things, and really get going for what the future is calling us to be doing. So now I take it forward and request Mohit. In fact, I was to thinking I will request Hariharan Saab first of all, who curated the event, and thereafter we'll get back to Mohit and get back to all the panelists here. So I request my friend Mr. Hariharan to please tell us the very thoughts behind his curation of this event and how exactly we learn out of each other. Thank you very much, and all the very best to the participants. I'm sure you're going to have a great learning. I'm seeing a lot of my very senior friends participating here from the government of India also, and from almost every sector of the, almost every sector. So please, let's have a good learning today. Thank you so much, and please hurry here and take over.
Uh, Good evening. Good evening, Dr. Bansal. Good evening to all of you. Boys and girls, good evening to you. So I think we have already found the Ubuntu moment. Dr. Bansal showed us the way. Where there is curiosity, I think the learning starts. The kind of events NDIM is hosting or really trying to host is path-breaking. I think the Ubuntu moments have already started. But however, I learned it from my sister-in-law in US. This is what she had sent me on Ubuntu. Ubuntu is a very nice story from Africa. The motivation behind the Ubuntu culture in Africa, an anthropologist proposed a game to the African tribal children. He placed a basket of sweets near a tree and made the children stand 100 meters away. Then announced that whoever eats first would get all the sweets in the basket. When he said, ready, steady, go, do you know what these children did? They all held each other's hands, ran
Wow.
together towards the tree, divided the sweets equally among themselves, ate the sweets, and enjoyed it.
Wow.
When the anthropologist asked them why they did so, they answered Ubuntu, which meant, how can one be happy when the others are sad? So we all need to be happy
Yeah.
when only others are happy.
Great.
Ubuntu in their language means, I am because we are, a strong message to all of us. So let us always have this attitude and spread happiness wherever we go. I think that's what is the beginning. So let me also add few more stories, one from my childhood and one from the recent memory. So my father was the eldest sibling, amongst the 7 siblings. So he brought all the 7 of them. In the same tradition continues, my cousin studied in my home back in Tamil Nadu. And the word he always used to say is, anything what you have belongs to all of you. Nothing belongs to you specifically. So in one of those Diwali nights, we bought the crackers. I'm always fond of crackers even now. And at that time we used to buy it for 10 rupees. He said, oh, 10 rupees is too big and I will do it myself. So he said, no, no, no. So in his own stern way, he said, nothing belongs to you. Everything belongs to all. I think that's my Ubuntu way from my childhood. And now, for most of the students who are pursuing MBA in NDIM and also the learners who have joined, Mohit today is currently the CBL patron. Otherwise, today he would have been the CEO of one of the leading insurance companies. Definitely. I'm sure all of you know that. However, see what he is doing. He is doing what he loves to do. He loves books. You ask him about any book on any subject, 24 by 7 oblique 365, he'll be able to answer. I think that's what all of us need to think. What do we love? When we do what we love, then the Ubuntu moment comes. We don't have to really look around and see where is the Ubuntu moment. And last but not the least, I will add one more story where When I came to Delhi in 1984, closer to where NDIM is, in Alaknanda Yamuna apartments, my Masiji used to live in a 1,000 square feet house. We were 9 cousins who landed in that place. And she ensured that all our breakfast, lunch, everything got packed. And then we used to leave at 8 a.m. and in a 1,000 square feet house. To me, that was Ubuntu moment. When others are sad, you can't be happy. We have to be happy when all of us are happy. Thank you very much, Dr. Bansal, Mohit, Ankur, Anushri, Manvi, Radhika, Shweta. Look forward to hearing from you. Thank you very much.
Now, Mohit, you are the moderator today, so kindly take forward and let's see how the thing proceeds. Please carry on.
Thank you very much, sir. And Hari, sir, I must say that while you were talking about me, I was wondering, did any of my in-laws call you today and said, "You okay? Just pull him more." So, a lot of Sukhantu and Bhavantu to you for this lovely Ubuntu. Thank you very much, sir. And but I will start this session with someone who never introduces himself. And every time I think of introducing him, it's towards the end of the session. So let me introduce Ankur to all of you, who always smiles, always in the back end, and I always compare him with the Shah Rukh Khan of Swades movie. If you would have all watched, that was a movie where you actually saw NASA scientists coming to India on the call of his grandmother. And on that request, he comes to the India, the village, and settles down here to settle the problem of electricity and the overall education of that small village. That's what Ankur is to all of us. A lot of people would know him, but a lot of people who don't know him, today over 500 people are here. For them, it's very important. And Ankur, you are playing the role of the actual Ubuntu. If you are there, we are here. You switch off the Zoom and we are out of this. So, Ankur, by education, is a chartered accountant. He did his MBA from Carnegie Mellon, and then he worked with Bank of America Merrill Lynch in US, and then he was also a consultant with Anderson and EY in India. And now, as the vice chairman, he's taking the role ahead. He's taking this college ahead. We also have Nikhil and Bhumika with us. We will come back to them as and when people will be able to see them. Thank you very much, Ankur, for bringing us together, and a great thanks to Dr. Bansal, and certainly the man who's the walking LinkedIn amongst all of us, which is Hari, and everyone would agree to that, right? He's a storyteller. He always brings in some definite new perspective. Without much of ado, now, in fact, about Hari, I must say, होता है ना हम यहाँ दिल्ली में कहते हैं पंजाबियों की तरह सानू की करी तो मैं कहता हूँ ask Hari. That's the only way you can actually get towards wherever you want to do. That's Hari to all of us. He's a mentor, he's a patron, and that's what Dr. Bansal is. To everyone, we are about to complete our second year now on this 21st July. And it was almost during the same time, for the first time, when I approached Dr. Bansal with the idea of we should do some book talks. He smiled and said, मुझे कुछ समझ नहीं आया, but जो भी तू कर रहा है ठीक ही कर रहा होगा, तो शुरू हो जा. I am there with you. And that's how we started. And thank you very much, sir, today to everyone. So let's move ahead. We will now take this session ahead. And I will now request Anushri to share her life lessons from the book, which is Mindful to Mindful. I must tell, I was fortunate enough to be invited for the launch of this book almost 2 years ago. But I was equally or more unfortunate when I couldn't reach there because of the traffic. And the roads were full of mindful people, unquiet and loud looking for peace outside without knowing that the search is within. This book is a book that you can read from any page and can find your answers. And Anushri, take us to the journey of a light and a quiet mind. Over to you.
I am still trying to learn how to be mindful, by the way. But thank you so much. Happy to be with such an accomplished panel. So much to learn already. I'm just trying to imbibe everything. Before I actually share what touched me about this book, I just want to explain to all of you and rather share with all of you as to why I actually picked up the book to read, first of all. And the cause is very close to my heart. A few months back, my sister, we have evening chats with my sister and mother, and she was actually going on talking about a book that has totally transformed her way of thinking, so much so that she has started carrying it in her purse. And she tells me, just like Amit said that, Mohit said that, I pick it up anytime and read from anywhere because it has so many answers to very deep meaning of life. And I was very intrigued because as a younger sibling, I've really looked up to her and was wondering that what is it that has changed her so much. And so that's how I really picked up the book. And to my surprise, when I saw the cover, it says Mindful to Mindful by Om Swami and Zen Wisdom. And I have practiced Buddhism for a very long time. Of course, I'm a very distracted person, so I also deviated my practice from time to time. So I think that's why mindfulness was very important for me. And so that also resonated because I wanted to see another perspective to life than what I have been practicing. So that's how I got to reading the book. And I must compliment the writer because the book is very simple. It has a lot of stories and anecdotes and simple exercises which can help us imbibe those learnings. But I must say that it deals with some very deep concepts and very profound concepts of life in a very simple way. And of course, I'm not going to get into the details of the entire book because it will take a lot of time. But very quickly, just want to share a few things that really resonated with me. And the first thing, of course, it focuses on Zen tenet and wisdom and way of life. And the first thing that stayed with me was the Zen state of being, where they say your mind should be free of conditioning. A very hard thing to attain, but if we are able to do that, then I think, in my opinion, we are fully aware and we are present. And it actually talks about the fact that if you can be fully present and aware of where you are in your current, then that's when you can be truly most effective. And for a person who suffers with huge amount of distraction, I thought that was one of the best insight or best learning advice that I could get from a book. And I started actually noticing myself when I walk into a meeting or a session. I'm very distracted. I have, a WhatsApp message coming. I'm trying to email. I'm trying to answer queries. I'm trying to answer queries in the review. And I realized that as a person, I am only able to take back 30-40% from what I could have taken from a session. And usually I'm left fairly dissatisfied. And that's when I really realized the power of being mindful and aware and in that situation. So that was my first learning. In fact, the book really beautifully summarized, and it says that every action of yours can literally become meditation because you're doing it with a lot of concentration and purpose. So even something as simple as eating can become meditation if you actually put your mind to it. So what you get out of that experience would be far much more than what you would have otherwise gotten. That was the first. Secondly, I really enjoyed the concept of emotional hygiene and cleansing. In fact, I got introduced to a concept of a soji, which is a Japanese term for being clean and free. In fact, I learned that in Japan, every year families get together to clean their house. And what they do is that they take out all their personal belongings, put that in the center of the living room, and start thinking, what is no longer required in their life and they can get rid of. And a very simple concept, but if you start looking at the deep meaning of it, it's actually decluttering your environment and making it a lot more positive and clear, bringing clarity for yourself. And it's also decluttering your mind, and that's what the book really advocates. And when we talk about decluttering your environment, it's also removing any kind of toxicity that we come across. It could be in the form of people, in the form of things that we're indulging in. And decluttering mind is all of us at some point are affected by negative emotions. It could be anger, hatred, jealousy, greed, whatever. All of us go through that. And if we can consciously check ourselves when we are triggered, I think the outcome that we will have and the life that we will lead is going to be very different and very transformed as well. Just for a moment, pause and think, any time that you have taken an action emerging from any of these emotions, has it ever given you a positive or a constructive end? most likely the answer will be no. So I think it's a moment of reflection for all of us to just think that can we not check ourselves when we are getting uh, repurposed by these emotions. So that was a second learning. And the last one that I will leave all of you with is the Zen Way of Living, which where it talks about four virtues, extremely hard to imbibe. But if I think we can, take a conscious decision to live by that, I think we would have really lived an enlightened life. And it talks about four virtues, which is compassion, discipline, humility, and the last one is forgiveness. Uh, Very easily put, compassion and humility is more, most of us will think about it as being polite sometimes or charity, but it's actually being very authentic, kind, polite, of course, but just being really conscious that no success should change us so much that we stop behaving, or we change the way we behave. In fact, there was a very small story that really struck a chord where it says there was a saint who was in the water trying to save a scorpion from drowning, and the scorpion kept on stinging him every time, and it happened 3 4 times. And a bystander just asked him that, why are you doing this? He is going on, constantly stinging you, and why are you doing this? So he just responded saying, that is in his nature to sting when he's opposed, and that's in my nature to actually save. And both of us are being true to our nature. So that's actually being, that's actually exercising humility in the real sense, where we don't change our uh, way we act or position because we're encountered by somebody else. So those are some of the things that really stayed in my mind. One of the interesting concept of the third virtue that I'll talk about is discipline, where it says discipline gives you freedom. Every time I think of discipline, I think discipline regiments you. That was my first take on discipline, and was really amazed to read that chapter in that book, because I am someone who really suffers from procrastination, and I know that I have been stressed and anxious because of that, because of procrastination in me. And it very simply said that, if you can actually quickly do the things that you have to do, whether you enjoy it, whether they are difficult, get it out of the way in a disciplined manner, you're actually more free to do things that you really enjoy in life. And that made me think of how I could actually structure my time in my life a lot better. And lastly, and the toughest, I think, is forgiveness. That was the last virtue, which actually spoke about, it's not whether the person deserves your forgiveness, but it is actually you who should forgive someone, because you will free yourself of a lot of negativity. And that is a very empowering thought. And these were some of the things that, even though I've read the book quite a few months back, but it just stayed with me. And I keep going over these chapters, because I know that from time to time we slip back into our own different behaviors, and we get also very impacted by environment and negativity. But if we can actually make a conscious choice of living in this way, I think all of us will find a lot more peace and calm, not just in our personal lives, but even in our work environment. We will be far more productive. We will have lesser conflicts, but more positive outcomes, action oriented outcomes. And I have seen that every time I have operated with a certain consciousness in terms of using compassion, or even just looked at not being negative, and have a positive thought to a positive intent, I've had a much better outcome. So I'll leave you with this learning. Hope that you read the book too. I benefited a lot. I hope you benefited from my learning too. Thank you. Mohit, over.
Thank you. Thank. Please carry on.
That's it. Over to you, Mohit.
Thank you, Anushri.
I-
Dr.
I'll
Vatsal, you were
take
saying
a,
something. Yeah.
I will take a minute, so that, although Hariharan has mentioned you, and introduced Mohit in a small way, And I must say that, at such a young age, the guy is always not just disciplined, he's extra disciplined. If he tell that I'll come for a meeting at 9 o'clock, he reaches for the meeting at 8:30. Okay, so that's something very remarkable about him. And he rightly said when he launched this concept of CBL, he tried to explain it so many times to me. I said, yeah, I don't understand what exactly you're saying. Unless I sit and participate there, I will not be able to understand what it is at all. And he's done a great thing. In fact, his passion for this, and as Anushri also said and Hari said, is primarily his love for what he's doing. I also asked him at that time, I said, Kya tum achhe bade, you're doing such a good work. Why are you getting into all this? What exactly will it give you? But he said, no, I feel very happy doing it. And you see him very happy and smiling all the time and very cool all the time. That's very, very, remarkable. And just to add what Anushri said, I also try to pick up things here and there, and I'm telling you only one liner from very famous poet, you can say, Sahir Ludhianvi. In fact, our generation knows it, youngers may not be knowing it.
No,
And
we
it
also
is,
know him.
yeah, and it is one of the songs of an Indian movie, which, I have lived through for the last 30, 40 years, since I heard it for the first time. And that says, उतना ही उपकार समझ कोई जितना साथ निभा दे. Whatever you do for me, even if you do 0%, if you do 1%, I should feel extremely grateful to you, and you will be a very happy person. So Mohit, please move forward.
थैंक यू वेरी मच सर. और अब आपने मुझे कुछ दिया है तो मैं बदला तुरंत चुकाता हूँ, और खासतौर पे अच्छी चीजों का बदला तुरंत चुका देना चाहिए. मैं अब आपके लिए एक चीज जरूर सबको बताऊंगा. पीपल मस्ट बी हियरिंग यू, एंड आई हैव बीन मीटिंग यू फॉर क्वाइट सम टाइम. और मैं हमेशा जब भी आपको कहीं कोट करना होता है तो मैं कहता हूँ मिस्टर डॉक्टर बंसल इज समवन जिनकी बोली बहुत मीठी है. And I think that's also one of the aspects that brings in a lot of mindfulness, which keeps ourselves in with people in harmony, and a lot of compassion is delivered. And as Anushri said, in our Vedas, it's been written that prarabdh सारी चीजें जो हमारे कर्मों की हैं, how we actually take it forward. Every moment, whatever we do, whatever we say, whatever we think should be positive, take us ahead. And that's what this book told me, and I do follow this. And when Anushri mentioned that she's going to talk about this book, I jumped upon it. Wow, this is the way softly you were telling it, I was just like, come listening to you. Wow. That was such a lovely way to and definitely you are mindful when you speak. There's a lot of compassion and there's a lot of empathy towards it, and you also kept the time very well. Thank you very much, Anushri. We now move to the another book, which is to be spoken by Manvi. And again, unlike the previous book where we couldn't attend the session, I couldn't attend the launch, this book that she's talking about, Ikigai, you're privileged enough not only to meet the author, but to host him, and that too at a place like India Habitat Center with over 700 people in the first part of this year in January 2020. And during that time, when I read the book again, because that's where I realized you open a book from anywhere, it'll give you some answers. And this is one book, Ikigai is one book which is actually about life, that how can you lead a long life? And to live a very long life, what you need is absolutely a clean mind. You need to be happy all the time. And that's what has happened is Okinawa, on which this book is based, the research on which this is based, that people live for the longest, but there's a scientific reason why they live for the longest. Usko hum Banaras mein mauj kehte hain. And that's what he has mentioned in this book, Okinawa, as to be joyous. So Manvi, do take us through this Ikigai, so that how can we be better guys? Yeah, please.
Sorry, hi. Thank you so much, Mohit, for that lovely introduction. I think I couldn't have introduced the book myself better. And Ikigai was a book that I picked up a few months back. And I must confess that I was really asking soul-searching questions to myself when I came across this book. And I've always been fascinated by the Japanese culture. I follow a Japanese form of Buddhism in my life. And I traveled Japan for 3 consecutive years, in one to see the cherry blossoms, another time to experience the winter, and the third time I think it was during peak summer. And I've seen that country in various seasons and forms and its people, and I fell in love with the country and its people. And when I read this book, I realized why was that and what I can really imbibe from this culture. Interestingly, this book is written by 2 Spanish authors, and it was first written in Spanish. And as Ikigai, Los Secretos de Japón, and I learned Spanish many years back, and I tried to read the Spanish version, and I couldn't really follow it. So that's a reminder to go back to the language as well. The best thing about this book was, it says the secret to a long and happy life. And I think a lot of us aspire to lead a long life because that means health, and it means a form of a mission in your own life. But the happiness is something that I think we're all trying to crack, and including me. And in this aspect of what I'm going to share with you is how I could relate to some of the aspects of longevity and happiness and try and inculcate it in my own life. What will be interesting is that if you Google this word Ikigai, you would find various definitions for it, right? And you would find one definition that says it's a reason for being, encompassing joy. It would also sort of divide the word into 2 parts, Iki and Kai, and give you the breakup of it. But the one I found, which was really exciting in this book, was a reason to jump out of bed each morning. And that to me really resonated, because I think it is really that moment that when you wake up, how excited you are, how much you're looking forward to your day, that really defines the happiness quotient for everyone. This book is actually referenced around an island in Japan called Okinawa. It's a beautiful island, and if you get a chance to visit, and if you have, you'll agree, it's just the way it is. It's not very populated, just very few inhabitants, and people live a long life there, age more than 100 on an average. And this book also references 5 other zones in the world. One, I think it was in Italy. The second is the Okinawa in Japan. The third was one island in California. The fourth, someplace in Costa Rica. And the fifth, another Greek island. And I remember this because all of this is my travel list at some point. What was so amazing about reading about Okinawa is the kind of tips people use and the kind of cultural aspects that they have, which we can all very easily learn. One thing that really stayed with me is, this word called stress, and how it redefines it for you. And I could link it to some of the psychology studies that all of us would have probably done about the system 1 and system 2 thinking, right? It defines, how stress tends to get the primal nature in us, which, the cave inhabitants used to have when they would sense some fear. Interestingly, what it says is that in today's lives, that stress for us means even a beep of a phone. And it actually induces the same kind of hormonal effect on us that a cave dweller would have when they would sense a physical insecurity. And how that much stress that we expose ourselves to day in and day out can create, long-lasting effects like depression, and linking it back to, how Anushri was speaking about not being mindful in our own lives, and hence not being happy. However, it also mentioned that, stress avoidance is not the way to get out of this loop. It mentions how a little stress is good for you. So what I really took back from this book was, how do I find the balance between the little stress and the stress that is inducing unhappiness? In our busy lives today, it's not often that you pause and even think about this question. And what I really found excellent from the book was that it gave me tips how to do so. So I've really started inculcating a few habits from this book. when the times I check my phone, the hours I spent on my email, the hours I spent doing other things that I really enjoy, having my life full of. And what I really found was that it was just the consciousness that you bring to your daily routine that made all the difference. Just wanted to highlight this point one. The second point was about finding the flow that really spoke to me, and how they define flow is the the sense of enjoyment and the bliss that you get when you go around your day-to-day work. And I found that while I was reading this book, I found my flow. But more than that, just if being more conscious of, am I enjoying what I'm doing right now, or am I doing it out of habit, or out of some threat, or because I have to? And if I'm not, how can I develop this habit of being more conscious about it? I think that piece is something that I'm still learning, how to identify my flow. But something that I feel that helps me in doing that is uh, moving all the distractions when you're doing a piece of important work, and practicing a few techniques. And this book also speaks about a lot of these techniques. It speaks about how the German logotherapy moved on to a few other techniques, etc. And it speaks about yoga, it speaks about meditation, Tai Chi. What I personally do is a few rounds of Surya Namaskar every day. It really helps me practice this technique of being mindful about my breathing and my emotions every day. So, the third thing that really spoke to me was about not eating till you're 100% or eating till you're 80% full. And that was another aspect that I took back. I think nutrition is something that we can all work on, whether it is eating the right kind of food or eating the right amount of food. And it's something that I've become a little bit more mindful about too. I think all in all, I would feel that it's important to revisit some of these aspects that the books make you conscious about. Uh, the Ikigai to me personally has become more a way of life, and to be able to feel happy when I get out of bed every day. And I hope that you find it as appealing too, that you really find your purpose when you get out of your bed and feel that yay and the excitement. And I hope it stays through the day. And that's it. Over to you, Mohit. I wish that the secret of a long and happy life becomes a reality in the form of a long and happy life in today's times, especially for all of us on the call.
Wow, thank you. Hari wanted to say something. Hari, would you like to add something?
Manvi, you are invited for 108 Surya Namaskar every week on Sunday. I do every Sunday 108 of them.
Wow.
Wonderful.
So I'm going to invite you in one of them. So just to tell you, I forgot to say a few things about CBL. CBL has hosted about 100 authors till now. Prominent among them are Amitabh Bachchan, R. Gopalakrishnan, chairman of Tata Sons, Harish Bhatt, the brand ambassador of Tata Group, Francesc Mireles, the author of Ikigai in India International Center with full attendance. And it is now 2 years since CBL is running. So this year, you can look forward to about 200 sessions. Please jump in under any subject. If you want to get knowledge, you don't have to go anywhere, come to CBL. Thank you, Mohit.
And Hari, I don't know how much you know about it. Our college students have been, part of Mohit's CBL journey.
Wow.
Okay. And CBL started its first chapter, not just with me, but our students at NDIM. So they have been present at most of his events. And he's been a very keen mentor to quite a large number of them. So they keep learning from him at every step, wherever they can catch hold of him. So it's been like that. Yeah.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Now I realize why my network is actually going in and out. The network doesn't want any of you to tell anything more about it.
No. It's a journey which is worth a praise, which is worth emulation, you know.
I'm really honored. It keeps me motivated every morning to be out of my bed. That what is it that I will read today, possibly share and also learn from all of you. Manvi, what you just said about Ikigai brings me back to the same concept of Ikigai, which I thought I have read the book multiple times. I, in fact, invited Francis for this session, but he was busy today. He couldn't come, but we have to share the recording with him. And he also mentioned that every time I hear about the same book that I have written, I get to know something new.
Yeah.
And that's actually about, it's not about us. It's always about others and especially you. So it was fantastic. Thank you. You told us how to be just not ikigai, but a good guy as well. Thank you very much, Manvi. We now move to something very interesting with Shweta, and she's talking about a book. I never knew about this book. I had heard about this book, and then I never thought of buying this book because I thought this is a mix of human emotions, anthropology, and nature. And nature is something that I love. That's my subject per se. And I left many things in life only for the sake of being a climate change activist. Only when I spoke to Shweta, I did realize that this book is something very different. And I did my research and I have already placed the order. This book has made me a little poorer by buying the book, but it will definitely make us million times richer with the kind of knowledge that we can gain from this very unique book. Shweta, over to you. You please do mention the name of the book, and to all the listeners, we are getting few questions on the names of the books. The first book was Om Swami's Mindful, F-U-L-L, to Mindful, F-U-L. And the second book that Manvi spoke about is Francis Miralles' Ikigai. And the book Shweta is going to talk about, Shweta will just tell you.
All right. Good evening, everybody. Thanks, Mohit, for that introduction. I'm really glad and humbled to be part of the session today. And I would like to thank NDIM and City Book Leaders for giving me this opportunity. Before I move on to share the learnings from the book that I have chosen, I would like to say something around the theme for today, Ubuntu. Now, in our HR profession, words like empathy or collaboration or harmony is widely used and casually used. I would have my business leaders call me sometimes to help them with a learning intervention to make their team more collaborative, more empathetic. But what I have realized over a period of time is that it's a very complex, difficult emotion to understand. It is even more complex to exhibit, and even to understand if the other person is exhibiting or not is also difficult. So, because this emotion of empathy or collaboration can take many forms, and the depth of this emotion is absolutely unknown. So, we need to understand this, that these emotions widely used but very, very complex to understand, very complex to exhibit or display. So the book that I have chosen is called The Age of Empathy, Nature's Lesson for a Kinder Society. Now, this book is very well conceptualized by author Frans de Waals. He himself is a Dutch primatologist, and he has done various research on behavior and social intelligence of primates. So, in this book, the author draws numerous examples from our fauna to make his case. Very interestingly, his case is that humans are hardwired to be humane, uh, which I realized simply means that empathy as an emotion is inbuilt within us, and it's something that we can't let go. It's an emotion which is flowing like a blood in our body, and we cannot do without empathy in our lives. uh, I think this book conveys a very important and timely message about the biological roots of human kindness. Now, many animals survive not by eliminating each other or not by keeping food only for themselves, but they survive because they cooperate and because they share. And this applies to most definitely pack hunters such as wolves, killer whales, and our closest relatives, primates, or we call them chimpanzees. If we have to survive, we have to cooperate and we have to share. Now, moving on to the learning from this book, I have basically, taken out three learnings from this book, which I felt are excessively important, and I felt it is excessively important to share with all of you. Now, the first learning from this book is individually we are weak. Humans as individuals are weak. We need to understand this. Now, I would like all of you to think about your role models or successful people around you. You would see that they are successful only because they were empathetic. Empathy can take many forms, which would simply mean they were good at sharing, they were good at helping each other, they were kind, and that's the reason they are successful, because individually we are weak. We would not be where we are today if we would have been socially aloof. The point that we need to understand first is we need to start believing that we as humans are not selfish. We are not only concerned about our survival, or we are not only concerned about the survival of our offspring. If I ask 10 people, do you find humans to be selfish? 8 of them will say yes to it. So I think it's very important for us to realize this, that we are actually not selfish. We are not only concerned about our survival, because this emotion of empathy, helping each other, being kind to each other is hardwired within us. Now there are too many economists. There are too many news feeds that we see every day. Then there are politicians. They have made us believe that there is always a struggle which exists in nature. But I feel that it is just a projection. It's a trick for which we have fallen for too long. Obviously, there is competition. Competition is part of the picture, but humans can't live by competition alone. The moment you start realizing that you are individually weak, you will see a whole new perspective about how kind and empathetic you are, and that's something that we as humans need to celebrate. Now, moving on to the second learning from this book, which is very, very interesting. I found it very, very interesting, is how we define empathy and how we define sympathy. Now, if you see, we say empathy is just not about understanding intellectually what someone is feeling. That will become very cold, that will become very uncaring. So just intellectually understanding how the other person is feeling is not empathy, but empathy requires an emotional understanding of what other is feeling. Now, whenever we try to empathize with someone, the bodily reaction of empathy comes first, which would simply mean that we will cry with that person, we'll hug that person, and the cognitive understanding comes later on. But empathy is limited to intellectually understanding what the person is going through, followed by emotionally understanding what the person is going through. On the other hand, sympathy is actually derived from empathy itself, but it goes a step further. It is not only limited to understanding understanding intellectually what someone is going through. It is not limited to understanding emotionally what the person is going through, but it is also strongly backed by the desire to help that person come out of that situation. So this was an important learning for me. As I have always believed that being sympathetic does not take much. But with this description about sympathy being derived from empathy and even goes a step further, I have realized that it is an equally complex emotion because it has the desire to help that person. So it was a great learning for me when it came to defining, or rather, finding out a difference between empathy and sympathy. Now, moving on to the third learning from this book that I would like to share with all of you is that we as humans would be completely worn down emotionally if we could not turn the empathy portal or button off sometimes. So it seems there is a button inside us, and sometimes it is on and sometimes it is off, but then it needs to go off, otherwise we as human will be worn down. Now, this is very interesting as it tells me why we are evil at times, or why we are not as empathetic towards a person as we should be, because at that moment of time, my empathetic portal or my button is off. Now, I take a step further and I want you all to understand what does turning off the empathy button or empathy portal means. Now, it simply means that depending upon how close I am to a given person, I would display my empathy. Within our immediate family and closest friend, the empathy portal is almost always turned on. But as the closeness becomes weaker, it becomes easier for us to switch it off. So it's a very important lesson for me that I learned from this book. And also we should understand that humans can actually be taught. We can be taught how to put on and put off this empathy button. We can almost completely turn off our empathy button for an enemy group. And interestingly, men are able to do this more easily than women. And also, it has been estimated that 1 to 2% of soldiers who go for war do the vast variety of killings in the war. The rest of them do not. And I guess that's because many psychological methods are employed during military training to turn the empathy button or the portal off. So I think this is another interesting learning for me. However, after saying all this, I feel that it is really odd that we hesitate to attribute positive traits such as empathy to animals, but we have no problem attributing their negative behavior such as aggression to our heritage. But we need to understand that empathy is part of our heritage. It is not something which is not a newly evolved trait within us. So at the end, I would again like to mention and want everybody to know and relate to the fact that we are individually weak. So if we want to grow in life, we need to cooperate. We need to share. Secondly, we always need to back up our empathy with our sympathy and bring the desire to improve the other person's position. Because empathy is only about understanding the pain of that person, realizing the pain of that person, but the desire to improve the position of that person is, I think, more important. And I think we should all inculcate this kind of behavior within us. We need to remember that empathy works very well in small social group. But now we need to learn how to balance individual and collective interest in our current complex societies. And having said that, I really urge you all to read this book and explore more about it. There are some really interesting anecdotes and case studies which are there, which will really make the reading a lot fun. Thank you so much for listening. Over to you, Mohit.
Thank you, Shweta. The book Age of Empathy by Franz de Waals, and he's a brilliant author. I was able to see some of other books as well. And what you just presented, if I have to summarize it into one line of having empathy, especially when it moves from our inner circle of family to other people, it's Vasudhaiv Kutumbakam. I think we'll have to understand that while we are part of the nature, the entire world and everyone is part of the family. So very well said. Thank you very much, Shweta. We now move to Radhika, who was just in another conference where she was telling others of Ubuntu while managing organizations. And she has been able to switch from the organizational discussion to how she applies some great thoughts, and that too by a book which was actually written around, not the book, the compilation of those poems by Rumi was written around early 13th century. That was the same time when in India, so Rumi went towards Turkey, and the other sect that came to India and built on Nizamuddin Aulia and Amir Khusro from the place where we are speaking right now. He also said some fantastic verses. And take us to the Rumi. And before you do that, from the Turkish Jalaluddin Rumi, he said something very fantastic, and that summarizes all the three books, be it Ikigai, be it Mindful to Mindful, and what you just mentioned about the age of empathy. Rumi said a beautiful line, which I always remember: let the beauty of what you love be what you do. And that's a brilliant quote by Rumi. And with this note, I invite Radhika. And Radhika has been my ex-colleague as well. And for the first time when I listened to her, I said, you should record your voice for children's animation. Such a lovely voice that she has, and people will come to know why I say so. Radhika, the stage is all yours, please.
Thank you so much, Mohit, and thanks for so many compliments. I'm not sure how much of that I deserve, but thank you. So, Mohit, like you, in fact, I would also like to start with a quote by Rumi. He said, and I quote, "What you seek is seeking you." And when I heard that quote, I was so intrigued to know the depth of this. And, I was so intrigued about the author that I started reading some of his books, including the one that I'll talk about today, which is close to about 100 plus stories, which just leave you to introspect and think through life and some of the deeper meanings of life. In fact, honestly, I have always been intrigued about stories themselves. Life is but a series of stories. So, how I would want to talk about this book today is I will start with, I'll talk about top three stories that I have picked up from these 100 or so stories and what has been my learning from each of these three. So, starting with the first one, it's called The Angel of Death. Now, Solomon, the wise prophet, was sitting in his morning assembly where he would have a lot of subjects come in with their problems. Suddenly, he saw a very distraught man there, and he called for the man and he asked, "What is your problem?" The man said that I just met the angel of death, which was looking at me in disdain. And that has left me really worried about my life as to, my life is about to end soon. So Solomon said, "Okay, and what do you expect me to do there?" So this man said that, please ask the winds to take me to India. I feel my life will be really safe there. So Solomon said, okay, no problem. I will ask the winds to take you to India, wherever you want to go, and they will leave you there. And that's what happened. The winds took the man to India and they left him where he wanted to be. Solomon went on to his usual chores. Now, the next morning, Solomon came back to his morning assembly with his subjects, and incidentally, he saw the angel of death there. So Solomon called for the angel of death and asked the angel that, why are you scaring them off? And the angel of death said, well, I am no way scaring them off. And then, of course, prophet gave him a specific instruction that even if he had a millions of wings, how could he travel to India? Even if he had a millions of wings, how could he travel to India in such a short span of time? Now, I thoroughly enjoyed this particular story, and I'm sure different people will interpret it in many, many different ways. I would say the way I would interpret it is that, for me, this just tells about the power of destiny. And especially when it comes to some, I would say, critical aspects of our lives, like inevitable events like death, these are some things that are not in our control and are just left on destiny. So that was probably my first learning, not negating the hard work and all the other practical elements, but definitely destiny when it comes to some, I would say, inevitable events in our life. Now I'll quickly talk about the second story. This again was a very interesting story about a snake catcher and a thief. Now it was a really beautiful day, especially for this snake catcher who managed to catch the first snake of the day. And in fact, it was not just the first snake of the day; it was the first snake of his lifetime. Little did he know that he had actually caught a very, very poisonous snake. But he was really happy with his first catch and rejoicing. And suddenly, he met a thief and who actually just took the snake away, stole the snake from the snake catcher. The snake catcher was extremely upset and started blaming his destiny for not being able to retain his first catch. Initially, he was like really depressed, but then he thought through it quite a lot. And then he said that, okay, why don't I just go and look for the thief? Maybe I'm able to get back my snake. So he started searching for the thief everywhere, and then finally, he was feeling very helpless because he could not find the thief anywhere. But suddenly, he came across a group of people who had assembled around a dead body. He just went there to see what was really happening, and he got to know that that was actually the dead body of the thief. And later it was discovered that that thief died because he was bit by the poisonous snake. Now, again, I would say my learning from this story, people will interpret it in many, many different ways. But how I interpreted it is that, life will give us many blows at that time. Sometimes they may seem like blows then, but eventually they are defining moments for us. So that blow of the snake catcher's first catch getting stolen actually proved to be very vital because he continued to live in the long run. And finally, I moved to the last story and my learning from that story. The third one that I picked up from these 100 stories was around the sailor and the professor. So there was this professor who wanted to travel by boat to his destination, and he took the boat. He looked at the sailor with a lot of arrogance and contempt. When the boat moved from the harbor, the professor asked the sailor, "Have you ever been to a school?" The sailor said, "Well, no, my master." And the professor said, "Oh my God, in that case, you've missed half of your life, my man." The sailor did not really like the tone or the attitude of the professor, and he just laughed and said, "Oh, well, I am sorry, but you have missed half of your life, my man." navigated through that storm and taken the boat. At that point in time, the sailor just asked the professor the question. The question was, "Do you know how to swim?" And the master said, and the professor said,
Sorry, we lost you in between, Radhika.
"Sure, Mohit. At what time?"
No, we lost you in between. There was some voice lag, I guess.
Okay.
Yeah, if you could just repeat the last part of the story.
Okay, sure. Thanks for telling me that. Yeah. So the professor asked the sailor, "Have you ever been to school?" To which the sailor said, "No, I haven't." And the professor said, "Well, you've missed half of your life then, man." The sailor was not very happy with the tone of the professor, but he continued sailing the boat. And then suddenly the weather changed its course and there was a storm. There was no way that the sailor could have navigated the boat through that storm. And the first question he asked the professor was, uh, the first question he asked the professor was, "Professor, do you know how to swim?" The professor said no, he did not know how to swim. And the sailor said, "Well, in that case, I'm afraid you've lost lost your next part of your life." So I think this was again a very, very interesting story when I read it. And like I said, for me, probably the biggest learning from here was that arrogance gets you nowhere. I think that, Mohit, to me were top three stories from the book, and they really kind of encouraged me to read more of Rumi's book. I would encourage all the participants also today to go ahead and read these stories, and in fact, have your own interpretations from the stories and create your own stories for life.
Thank you very much, Radhika. And I'm sure a lot of people will now agree what I've been telling you for the last 10 years, that you should now start recording stories, not only for the people who can listen to you, but to everyone. We should approach you. And thank you very much for taking us through this entire journey of Rumi. And just imagine, so knowledge at any point of time, and verses and poems and prose and reading at any point of time is always valid, whatever age and era we are into. Thank you very much for taking us through that. We have a person amongst us who's Nikhil, who's here, will take us through the questions alongside Ankur. Nikhil is a voracious reader and he mentions that he has read all the books that we spoke today, my goodness, and he loves to train on everything possible. So I hand it over to both Ankur and Nikhil to take questions ahead and to see if the participants would really like to ask you questions and add more value. Dr. Bansal, thank you once again. Hari, Shweta, Anushri. Manvi had to take an important call, so she's out. She may join in a while. But meanwhile, the stage is all yours, Ankur and Nikhil.
All right, thank you, Mohit. So I think first question is for very interesting. It has come in the chat for Hari. Hari, can you come online, please? Yeah. So the question is by Dr. Ramesh Rawat from Jaipur. So he's mentioning very interesting, phenomena, that what is the process to learn from any book and how can we learn? Because when we read anything, 85% things forget just after rest of the part within few days. So what is the mechanism? How can we continuously continue our learning? And we forget, and that's the fact.
Yeah. So to me, the only way I follow is I don't do anything what others say. If I like reading that book, then I will not forget any learning from that book. So same way, if you love reading that book, one should do, and try and implement at least one of that from that book, at least one thing. Probably that remains. Not all of them ever remains. But to me personally, I don't read too many books. But whichever book I read, I definitely implement at least one small thing in my life for the rest of my life. That's how probably I remember. And then being a continuous learner, Professor Nikhil, I think it's an attitude, because nothing is permanent and everything is transient. So as the knowledge. Hence, learning is continuous and reading has to be permanent.
Absolutely right.
Nikhil, I think just
Before, yeah.
to add to this, in the last webinar with Mr. Shiv Khera, he was advising that the way he does this is he actually sits down with a pen and he makes a noting wherever he likes within the book.
Yeah.
So it's, you know, like many of us forget, but he goes through the books and he was saying if you read it once, as per him, you haven't retained much, but he keeps scribbling and taking down notes wherever he likes within the books.
All right.
Now, before you ask next question, Nikhil or Ankur,
Yeah.
now I'll ask panelists one very small thing. You know, they have discussed a lot of learnings, lot of stories by real great eminent people. No, I would come to them. You know, they have long innings of personal experience into HR especially. So one thing, in case they can just let me know what practical experience they did, not regarding Ubuntu now, what exactly the learning that they would like to take to the participant students in the academia. One important thing that you remember in your career, which has made a lasting impact on you, each one of you. I'll just look for that. Hari, I'll start with you.
So to me, one thing I take through is simplicity and authenticity. Just be what you are, inside and outside. Then life is very simple and you will achieve great heights.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And
Beautiful.
Radhika ji, for you, kindly unmute yourself.
Yeah, thank you so much, sir. And I completely agree with Hari, sir, whatever he said. I think authenticity is the need of the hour for all of us. And as long as we can stay true to ourselves and to whoever are our stakeholders, the rest is taken care of.
Any specific event that you would like to remember and tell us about that, share with us? Some moment in your practical life that you still feel stays in your mind.
Okay, so I think it's a great question. I can't recall any specific moment, but I think one of the things that I do recall over the last many years is that it's really important to, I think, be open to the views of others and not just be very particular about what you want to talk about, what you believe in, and force that on people. So I think that has been a big learning. The moment you put yourself in others shoes and understand where they are coming from, a lot of issues or challenges are anyway taken care of because you're getting the other person's perspective.
Thank you, Radhika. Thank you so much. And Shweta, please unmute yourself.
So thanks for this question, sir. And of course, in our corporate life, there is a new learning every day. But for me, I think, collaboration is something that has worked wonders. There was a time when, because I'm not an HR professional, I did my HR studies way later in my career. I have always been a learning professional. So there were, but then in most of the organizations where I worked, L&D was always a part of the HR function. So I have to work very closely with HR people, and their way of looking at something was very different from my way of looking at it. But then I think I have met some amazing people throughout my career who were ready to collaborate with me, who were ready to help me learn HR science, which I think I learned later on out of my own passion. But I think in corporate careers today, in corporate life today, what the one thing that takes you places is collaboration. Even if you do not know something, but you have a collaborative approach towards doing some project or some work, you would find people to help you out, and that's something which has given me results throughout. And now also, if I get stuck anywhere, I have millennials working under me who have a different way of learning, have a different understanding of things. But if I get stuck, I collaborate with them. I ask them to make me understand what these new age things mean, and they help me. So I think that's something which is extremely important, to
Thank you
be
so much.
collaborative.
Thank you so much, Shweta ji. And coming to you, Anushri, you just kindly unmute yourself. Just simple answer. Any specific moment or incident that you really still remember in your long innings of learning?
Thank you so much for asking. Yes, I think one of the most important things about working is that you will have continuous learning. We will never be experts of every field. And I think learning comes from anywhere. And the most recent is I'm not an IR expert. And I have seen that the best advice comes to me and helps me in taking decisions from people who've been in that field a lot more than me, and I respect them, and I trust them, and I think that's something that just has stayed with me, that I will continue to keep learning no matter which role and which level I go to. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And another question before I hand over, and please, I expect that you answer in half a minute, 1 minute each one of you. Is what particular skill or mindset do you think the graduates, who graduate next year or graduate after 2 years, what do you think, they should carry with them to be becoming as bright or as successful in their lives as you people are? Hari, we start with you.
So just to tell you, sir, I am from a very small village. I came to Delhi knowing good Hindi and a little bit of English. Writing and reading was good, but speaking was bad. People used to laugh at me because the grammatically I was not great. But however, one thing people must realize is don't plan too much. Just take thing as it comes, and whatever you do it with 100% focus and diligence.
Totally
And
right.
If you deliver that moment, the next moment will come automatically.
Very right. Thank you so much. Thank you. Radhika ji?
Uh, so I think I would say one of the things could be that they need to come with an open mindset and keep the curiosity on. I think it's like Anushri said, it's even till date, all of us are learning about different things. So it'll be a continuous journey for them and they will continue to learn. So if they have that curiosity, they will learn and even contribute eventually.
Perfectly right. And Anushri, man, what exactly you have to say? One thing that they must always bear in mind to be successful.
So I think positive attitude carries you a long way. In life, we will come across many situations and many people who will act as derailers or detriments in our life. But the only thing that will carry us is our positive attitude and grit. And I think that's something we should never give up on.
And Shweta ji, very short answer from you.
I keep it very short. I think for me, one of the most important skill would be to invest in relationships. Even at workplaces, have a genuine heart, invest in relationship, collaborate with others. I think it goes a long way.
Quite right. Thank you. And Mohit, you also now, I'm looking from you also.
So my only submission would be stay debt free, stay light, and have your requirements limited. That's it. It will give you a lot of joy in life.
Thank you so much. Before we pass on to the questions, I just need to thank Monk Consulting for supporting and partnering this event. The Strat Board, which are again a big HR consulting company. Monk at Work, the TPSG, the strategy advisors, and our very close supporters, Public Relations Society of India. Ajit Pathak, their president for the last 35 years, is a part of the deliberations today. He's attending the event today. So thank you very much, all of you. And now questions, I leave to Ankur and Nikhil to take forward.
So I think there are many questions, but broadly, I think we are pretty much done with time. So I would just, if you don't mind, I would just ask everyone to maybe give their last closing statements. We learned a lot extensively when you discussed each book in detail. But if you could just summarize for the benefit of the participants, many of which may be 20-year-old students who are just stepping out of undergrad and stepping into MBA. So for them at this stage of life, from your books, from the books that inspired you, and from your entire experience, or what message do you have for them? So we could start anywhere. We could start with Shweta, then go to Anushri, Hariharan.
All right, so I'll start. I'll go by few learnings that I want all these students to really work upon, and these are the learnings that I am also taking from the book that I just referred. As I said, please remember that individually we are weak. We as human need to collaborate. We need to work together. We need to cooperate. We need to share. Even in the corporate world, when you be working in an organization, please remember to do that. That if you try to eliminate other people, try to take credit of your work, you will not go very far. So try your best to be collaborative. Individually we are weak. The second thing that I want all of you to really imbibe is that let's not get into a discussion about should we be empathetic, should we be sympathetic. My whole idea would be to understand the other person's situation, emotion, genuinely, and secondly, have a desire to help that person. As long as you have the desire to help that person, you would be able to help as well. But keep that desire. So just two learnings. Individually, you are weak, so collaborate. And secondly, empathy, sympathy, I don't know, but if you see somebody in pain, have the desire to improve the situation of that person. Thank you.
Anushri, will come to you.
Yeah, so a quick one from me. One is that just want to leave the youngsters knowing that career is a marathon and not a sprint. So please don't take shortcuts to success. It will land you nowhere in the long run. So don't take those attitudes and shortcuts. And secondly, there is no substitute for labor and learning. So just continue doing that. All the best.
Thank you. Radhika, if we could have your input.
I think I just missed the question. I was having bad network. Apologies for
So
that.
we were just asking everyone, to conclude, what would be your message to students who are just entering MBA or in their first year of MBA at the age of 2021? What skills or what mindset do you want them to be cognizant of as they start their corporate careers?
Sure. I think it's first of all, I would just let them know that congratulate them. They are fortunate enough to get into this MBA college, especially in a country like India. So there is already quite a lot of effort and hard work that has gone behind. And the next thing is that there is no substitute to hard work, even when you move out of your college and you move into the corporate world. So you have to continue doing that to remain and to achieve your end objective or be successful in your career in the long run.
Thank you, Radhika. Mohit, we'll have your input and then we'll go to Hari.
So mine would be from Ikigai, unlearn. Don't think that you have learned enough. Unlearn. That's it.
Thank you.
Should I go?
Yeah, please, Hari. Yeah, please go ahead. Yeah.
So I'll give you three. One is, I forgot to mention, book reading reduces stress by 68% just by reading 10 minutes a day. So that means if you read a book, any book, 10 minutes a day, it reduces stress by 68%. It's a proven study. So please do read whatever you like. Number two, go to Bharat. So don't worry about only the 4 metros. So the life is beyond all these places. Be ready for moving into any part of the country for your growth. To me, my growth happened in Chandigarh, Jaipur, Hyderabad, Bangalore, Bombay, or those district headquarters where I used to travel for my job. So hence, I request you to look at beyond these places and go to Bharat. You can contribute so much as a independent rural professional. Agriculture is going to grow in a big way. It doesn't mean that whatever we do, we need to be connected with that. So your learning can be clearly be useful as the technology is reaching the village through digitization. Look at that. The third one, life is simple. Keep smiling. Whenever you are, in stress, just laugh it out. Just laugh it out. Do any form of prayer, what you want to do. It doesn't have any religion. Close your eyes. Just remember whichever superpower you like. Life will be great.
I'll say from 3 Idiots, all is well, all is well.
All is well.
Yeah. And is Manvi joining back?
No, sir. I think she has a call.
Totally
so she's
fine.
in a long call. Yeah.
That's perfectly totally
Fantastic.
good. Yeah. Any other question, Ankur and Nikhil, or do we thank everybody?
Yeah, I think, sir, we have exceeded our time limit, I guess. So
yeah, I know. Yeah. So, is there anything, or we thank everybody?
Yes,
yeah.
I think you can.
So thank you so very much, Hari, for curating the event. Thank you so very much. I don't have to thank, of course, Mohit, because he's a part of us. He's not just part, he's a partner with us. So thank you so much, Mohit, for moderating and bringing such good people along today, which is adding a lot to our learning also. And as you rightly said, learning is a very continuous process. Hari said, yes, yesterday's knowledge is not relevant today. So every day you add something to what you already know. So thank you so very much, Anushri. Thank you so much, Shweta. Thank you so much, Radhika. And I'm extremely grateful to all the participants who have stayed along through the entire session. I'm sure we are taking home some of the learnings. And as I mentioned at the very beginning, let's just do it. Let's do something. Whatever we picked up, we may have picked up 10 threads. Ultimate thread leads to only one thing, being happy. So all of the things are how do you remain happy? By being empathetic, by being supportive, by collaborative, how to be winning. But ultimately you're doing all those things for being happy. So you can be happy without a reason also. I'm only trying to say, just be happy, as Hari said, and that's what everybody is giving you, that mantra. And that's perhaps the mantra to excel also. If you're happy, you will be excelling. Thank you so very much, everybody. Very nice having you. Very grateful. Thank you so very much for this great.
Good night, everyone. Enjoy.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you.